Hi guys, my name's Barry and welcome back to the channel. Every horror movie stems from somewhere, whether it be a memory by a director or just a vision from a director. But one thing's for sure is a lot of horror movies that you know today are inspired by some sort of true event, whether it's based on a true event or inspired by. So I'm going to go through 10 films that you may not have known that were inspired by or at least based on a true story. The Exorcist from 1973 is loosely based on the 1949 exorcism of a boy just known as Roland Doe. He was also given the name Robbie Mannheim. He was a 14-year-old boy who was apparently possessed by a demon or the devil, and that's where William Peter Blatty got his inspiration from when he was writing the 1971 novel The Exorcist. Just like the movie, the Catholic Church came in and they performed numerous exorcisms on this young boy. I don't know if this is true because of the name of the Inquirer, but it's called the Skeptical Inquirer. They reported that the true identity of Roland, or Robbie, is Ronald Edwin Hunkeler, who was born on the 1st of June 1935, and he passed away on May the 10th, 2020. A Nightmare on Elm Street from 1984 was loosely based and inspired by a series of mysterious deaths where people died in their sleep. Now, I read about this years ago that in 1981, these vets from Vietnam, Laos, and Cambodia all came over to the US to get away from the war or whatever it was, and a lot of them died in their sleep. It became so bad that the Centre of Disease Control had to look into it to find out if these people were carrying any diseases because they came over to the US. It turns out that they didn't carry any diseases whatsoever. A total of 104 people died, 103 men and one woman died, and they were the average age of 33 years old. 98% of the deaths occurred between 10 p.m. and 8 a.m., while most of them, if not all of them, were asleep. Wes Craven followed that article to the very end until it just kind of fizzled out, and he decided that that was something he was going to use as his inspiration to create Freddy Krueger. The Exorcism of Emily Rose was based on the true story of Anneliese Michel, a German girl who underwent exorcisms before her death. Now, this story was very tragic. You can even listen to the audio tapes on YouTube or whatever websites you want to. Now, I do warn you though, guys, if you listen to the audio tapes, I might try and find a little sample of it for here, but if you listen to the audio tapes all the way through, they are haunting. They're actually quite scary as well. And I think they changed the name of the film to Emily Rose, maybe just to pay a little bit of respect to the real girl, Anneliese Michel, because she did die in the manner that she did. The photographs of her are not nice at all. And at the end of the day, she was diagnosed with something called epileptic psychosis, and she died of malnutrition as well. So I think maybe the doctors didn't go there because the family neglected that. They felt like it was more of a faith-based thing where there was a demon inside of her, and they got the church involved. The church believed her, or maybe the church were just playing along because they wanted something to do and they wanted people to believe there was more than just us out there. I don't know, but at the end of the day, she was neglected, and that's how she died. The film itself is a dramatisation of the events that occurred with Anneliese Michel. The only difference is the name and where it took place. Wolf Creek from 2005 was inspired by the backpacker murders in Australia committed by Ivan Milat. Milat was known as the backpacker murderer because he killed 5 people, 2 men and 3 women. What he would do first is he would rob them and then he would murder them afterwards. And that occurred between 1989 and 1992. He would do in real life what you would see in Wolf Creek. He would go up to these people, offer them transport. If maybe they're tired or their car broke down or whatever, he would be the means of transport, and that's how he would kill them. Just the exact same way that it happened in Wolf Creek. Unfortunately or fortunately, Milat died in 2019, and there are other victims that they believe that he did kill that we will just never know about now. The House of Eyes from 1977 is loosely based on the legend of Sonny Bean, and that is a clan of cannibals that lived in 16th century Scotland. Now, being from Scotland myself, I know a lot about the Sonny Bean clan. They're a 16th century clan of just a big family who apparently killed and ate over 1,000 people in the space of 25 years. Apparently, they were caught when they sent out a search party led by King James VI out to find out what happened to the people that were going missing. And then they found this family living in a cave who probably lived in the cave for centuries if they're a family going down the line in generations. So that's when they get caught and then they were all killed. The Strangers from 2008 was inspired by a series of break-ins and the infamous Kerry Cabin murders. The Kerry murders refer to a brutal quadruple murder that took place in a cabin in 1981. One of the family members, called Tina, was one of the only family members who went missing that night, but eventually they found her bones later on. And when I say later on, it was years later that they found her, so we just didn't know what happened to her until then. Just like the way the movie ended in 2008, the Keddie murders is still unsolved to this day. They don't know who killed them, they don't know why they killed them. All they know is murders took place, and that was it. Halloween from 1978 was loosely based on a visit to a mental institution by John Carpenter.
When I was in college, I had a class, psychology or something.
Believe it or not, John Carpenter's inspiration for Michael Myers came when he went to a college trip to his local sanitarium. They were writing some sort of paper.
And we visited a mental institution, and this was in Kentucky.
And he went to this mental institution in Kentucky and he noticed that there was this little boy who wasn't saying anything. He was facing the corner and he was about 12 or 13 years old.
Then there was this kid, I must have been 12 or 13, and he literally had this look.
And he just looked like he had that blank, pale, emotionless face and the blackest eyes. The Devil's Eyes. Jeepers Creepers from 2001 was based on an Unsolved Mysteries episode. In April 1990, Marie and Ray Thornton were driving along the highway and they were doing what they normally do. They were playing games with people's license plates when they were trying to maybe say names in the license plates, if that sounds familiar. And they came across this car that was going right up the backside and he was driving past them. They noticed there was some sort of blood on the side of the car, but it just kept going. And then they noticed this car again at this abandoned place. I don't know if it was a schoolhouse or a church. And it looked like they had a body wrapped in a sheet. So when the car went away, they drove in to see what it was. They looked at the sheet. There was blood on the sheet. And they thought, we need to call the police or some sort of law enforcement. But as they were driving again, they saw the car again until it looked like the car was trying to ram them off the road. They went a separate way from the other car, and then that was the end of it. Now, it turns out later on that we found out that the person that was behind them and in front of them was certainly a killer, and his name was Dennis Depew. He invaded police for nearly a year until he was finally stopped. That wasn't part of the Jeepers Creepers story. The part of the Jeepers Creepers story was the identical opening to the movie. Now, Victor Salva himself, bad man, Victor Salva himself denied that his movie was based on the Unsolved Mysteries episode. But if you look at the episode itself, the episode did come out in 1990 or 1991 or whatever, and the movie didn't come out till over 10 years later. Was it a coincidence? Probably not. Scream from 1996 was loosely based on the Gainesville Ripper in Florida. Danny Rollins was a murderer who killed 5 college students in Florida, Gainesville, over the course of 4 days in August 1990. I did cover this story on my channel, so if you want to know more about it on my channel, you certainly can. I've done a full video on it. But Danny Rollins was one of these people where when you watch documentaries about it, it does feel like when they try and reenact the scenes in the documentaries, it does have that Scream feel about it because of the way he sneaks into people's houses with a screwdriver, and the way he kills them is quite similar to the way a murderer or a serial killer would in a horror film. When you're watching the documentaries, when you look at these students talking on the camera, saying how scared they were, should they go home to their parents or should they stay? Can they afford to go home? Everything felt like the frenzy that you saw in films like Scream when you see Gail Weathers at the school talking about the murders and she's part of the camera crew. The same thing happens in real life in Gainesville. According to Kevin Williamson, this was the inspiration that helped him begin writing Scream. Child's Play from 1988 was loosely based on the story of Robert the Doll, a supposedly cursed doll in Florida. Apparently, the legend of Robert the Doll was the inspiration behind Don Mancini creating Child's Play in 1988. Now, when I look at the dates for all of this happening, I don't know how true this is, because apparently Robert the Doll was owned by the Otto family, who unfortunately passed away in 1974, and then the doll was in someone else's possession for over 20 years, which would be over 1994. And I don't know how much of that information got leaked before or after the creation of Child's Play. You know, when you watch films like The Exorcist, after the film The Exorcist came out, we got more paranormal happenings in houses after 1973. And I think it was the same with Robert the Doll and Child's Play. After Child's Play came out in 1988, more people were coming out to say, oh, my doll is possessed. And I feel like Robert the Doll could be one of those stories. However, if it was the inspiration for Child's Play, Robert the Doll was a German doll that came across to the US in 1904 or something. And it was owned by the Otto family. Then it was passed down by generation until it got to the last members of the Otto family, a man and his wife, who passed away in 1974, and the wife passed away in 1976. And apparently, or I don't know if it was apparent, but if the doll was possessed or haunted before or after these people passed away, and as the souls of the Otto family inside Robert, who knows? But apparently Robert the Doll can change facial expressions, he can move, and he can physically and audibly laugh as well. So that's the parts of the inspiration behind Child's Play. So that's just 10 movies that were inspired by or based on true stories that maybe you didn't know about. I decided to leave out films like The Texas Chainsaw Massacre and Psycho, etc., because I think everybody knows that those movies are kind of loosely based on real life serial killers like Ed Gein. But if there's anything else that you think, maybe there's another movie out there that I haven't mentioned, or if there's anything that you want to discuss that I've discussed just now, then leave those comments down below, guys. And as always, thanks a lot for watching, thanks for subscribing, and I'll see you soon.
Meeting adjourned.
I'll be right back.
What are you waiting for, huh?
Coming to get you, Barbara.
Ever played Skin the Cat? Someone's in the back!